Hello and welcome to our 7-8 minutes of weekly Torah talk. Our guest today is Rabbi Ahud Sela. He's the rabbi of Temple Ramat Zion in Northridge, California. Hello, Rabbi. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, my pleasure.
Our parsha is Shemini, still in Leviticus. This parsha features the story of the death of Aaron's two eldest sons after they offer a strange fire before God. As well as in this parsha, we have laws concerning kashrut and rituals of purity. The first pasuk of the parsha says, "Vayhi bayom hashmini kara Moshe leAaron ulevanav uleziknei Israel." And it was on the 8th day that Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. So, Rabbi, do you also read this first pasuk as a pasuk befitting a beginning of a tragedy? And it was on the 8th day, and you expect the rest of the story to unfold the way it is.
Not at all, actually. I think that it's very surprising. We are viewing the consecration of the Mishkan, and we're expecting a wonderful celebration, and it should be such a great moment, which is why I think the tragedy is even doubled. Because it's not just that his two sons died, it's not just that his two sons died while performing the rites in the temple, but they died on the day of the consecration. You know, imagine you've been preparing for this moment for months, maybe even years, and all of a sudden on the day of what's supposed to be the greatest glory, all of a sudden tragedy of for them of national proportions, where the two sons of the high priest died there in public view, in front of everyone. It isn't even something that's hidden away. Everyone in the entire nation has seen it, and they've seen it just after a revelation. I mean, that's maybe even the hardest thing for us to try and understand, is that Aaron has just performed some sacrifices, and it says that the people then saw God. It's kind of like they had another moment of Har Sinai.
Right.
And all of a sudden, boom, at that moment of greatest ecstasy, the moment of
And this is a tragedy for whom? Of course, for Aaron, because these are his sons, and for them because they die. Is it also a tragedy for the people?
I think absolutely. I think we have to understand it as a national tragedy, because these were two leaders. These weren't just anyone from the congregation. Unfortunately, already we've had incidents, where Israelites have died at God's hand. They've already done the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, and people have died.
Right.
But here, this is kind of like the vice presidents all of a sudden being struck down, and it's hard for me to even imagine seeing that, let alone even hearing it secondhand of how serious it must be. You go on. How do you declare, okay, the Mishkan is a sacred space, but it's also a murder site?
Right. And every year when I talk to people about this parsha, it is still hard for me to comprehend why exactly were they killed by God. What was the exact sin that they committed that demanded their death?
That's why I love this parsha so much, because even from the simple level of the text, that there are very clear reasons why we can look at it. A lot of the rabbis come up with very specific sins that they did. But I also love the fact that the text isn't perfectly clear, and it can be looked at in different ways. And even what I love about it is that there's some Hasidic commentators who look at it in the opposite way. And instead of saying, oh, they were punished for a sin, he said they were rewarded for something. But let's first look at the.
Usually, when people are executed, you expect clarity, not mysterious reasons that you can't understand.
But I think we're all here with Job, and basically the saying that has come away in English, right? That God works in mysterious ways, and even though we think something looks so perfectly clear, all of a sudden, with a little bit of hindsight, things don't always seem so clear. And with the perspective, we often look at things differently.
Okay, so give me some of your best explanations to this untimely death of the two sons of Aaron.
So what I take from this, in terms of looking just at the pshat and saying, okay, if this was a sin, and these are great lessons in terms of leaders to look at, because I think that they were treated differently because they were leaders. I think that if they had just been some regular Israelite going and offering a sacrifice, they would not have been treated quite so harshly. But the fact that they were leaders and symbolic exemplars, so the rabbis talk about, maybe they were drunk because there's laws about priests shouldn't drink. The rabbis talk about simply just that they weren't commanded to do something, and it doesn't say up until that point. It's very specific. God tells Moshe to do something, Moshe tells him to do something, and he does the sacrifice, and it's very rigid. All of a sudden, they do something uncommanded.
Right, and when we talk about the more severe punishment for leaders, also when Moses himself is forbidden from entering the land of Israel, then the commentators also say he is severely punished because he is the leader.
Absolutely. Because if people see leaders doing something wrong, they think that if even a leader who maybe holds himself up to a higher standard does something wrong, then how much the more so than just a regular person can go ahead and do something. And leaders have to remember, celebrities don't like to think about it, but it's true for leaders too, that someone's always watching. And so you may think, oh, nobody's watching, nobody's paying attention, or what I'm doing is nobody's going to think of it as a symbol. But people do. People really pay attention to their leaders, and they look up to them, and even the smallest thing, they're paying attention to see what's the proper way to do something.
Right, and you mentioned Hasidic commentators saying that this was a reward and not punishment.
Yeah, so what's fascinating is they turn it on its head, right? The pshat is that they did something wrong, but the wording in some of the text is not perfectly clear. So especially if you look at what happens right beforehand, where Aaron is doing these sacrifices, and he's lighting a fire, and he's offering animals, but then it says in terms of God's acceptance, that says a fire came down from heaven and ate up it ate up the sacrifices. A few verses later, same thing happens. You have Nadav and Avihu coming forward with their incense, and a fire comes down, and it says, and it ate them.
Right, I remember that last year when I spoke about the same parsha with Rabbi Gordon Tucker, he made reference to the exact same words that are used in both occasions.
Right, and it's a strange word to use when it's later on they say tisrof, it says like to burn them, and it doesn't say that God destroyed them. Later it says they were destroyed, but at the moment they were eaten up, and it's so similar to the sacrifice to say, so a sacrifice is not a bad thing. So these people are sacrificed in a sense of good, and the whole idea of sacrifice is somehow being part of then or separated from the physical world and becoming pure spirit. That seems like a reward to some Hasidic commentators, that here they're coming forward with just pure love of God, and that they were no longer needed to be physical world anymore. And God said, you know what? You passed the test. I'm gonna reward you, and it's there's this tension in any religion. If you think of God existing in a different realm, that we want to be at that realm, but we still live here on earth. It's more you see more tension in religions like Hinduism, where they're always trying to get to the next level and the next level.
Right.
Well, you see a little bit of it in Judaism. We're supposed to live on this world, but we always dream of heaven and dream of our souls, being free. There's the famous verse in the Psalms. What do I want? I just want to be in God's presence. So they got what they wanted, maybe. And because of their pure love, they didn't need to be on earth anymore. There were no more, mitzvot to perform. There were no more acts of chesed to do. They did it. They achieved that level, and God said, "You made it. I'm going to take you right now."
Rabbi, thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Shmuel. Shabbat Shalom.